he said that when they got into power, though he is head of the EMT, the government took the decision that the finance minister will be in charge of the fiscals. The Bank of Ghana will be in charge. The Bank of Ghana governor will be in charge of the monetary policy, and he was supposed to do a complementary activity of the digitalization to complement the two things that they did. Then he also said that almost all the controversial tax measures introduced by the government, he believes is senseless, and that's what, when he looks into his tone and everything, he abolish them. The first thing is the 15% VAT, and that was a caveat. He said if, so it's not even conclusive. And interestingly, just as he finished speaking, around 8:05, the government issued a letter to the ECG and NEDCO to suspend the implementation process that they were putting in place to charge a 15% VAT.
It's not abolishing. Let's take note of the words. Not abolishing, but to suspend.
Yes. Yes. So
I just wanted to put that one out.
Yes. So the vice president said when he comes, he will abolish it. He also said he will take out the e-levy, and he also said that he will also take out the emission levy.
Plus
he believes that the
well,
charging of the e-levy is detrimental to the digitalization and then financial inclusion. So that was what he said. Then he also made mention that the national service will no longer be mandatory. People can just go and do other things if they want to. So meaning that now, because I know if you want to work in the public service, your national service certificate is a prerequisite. It means that will no longer be the case. He also said that there will be a flat rate of tax system for businesses, and I've listened to the Guta saying that that's a good omen for them. Then he also said that there will be a reduction.
If I may, forgive me, the Guta president himself, Joseph Obeng, yes. Dr. Joseph Obeng also said that the fact that the auditing will be done once every 5 years is something that they've been calling for so long, and so he's excited about that one as well. I just wanted to chip that one in. Please go on.
So he also said that there will be a 30 to 40% reduction in public transport. Then he also said that largely he was a mate. The decisions taken by the government were mostly by the driver. And he even went further to say that his job at the EMT was simply an advisory duty. And so the president not bound to take the advice. In fact, there's a Supreme Court ruling on this when the issue of the Council of State came, whether it should be abrogated or not. The Supreme Court, if I remember, said that the advice of the Council of State is not binding because the president has the executive power. He takes final decisions. The council can advise, but the president is not bound to take the advice. And he also made mention of when he comes, he basically jettisoned the Mohammed 24-hour economy and said that everything that he has done, especially in the digital sector, is 24 hours. You can do mobile money interoperability, buy credit, send money across 24 hours. You can do
bank transactions. And all that.
He made mention of how his father died at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. He brought in Zipline. Zipline is transferring blood across the country 24 hours. Medicine, and all that. So basically, these were the highlights I picked.
So let me ask okay, fine. Let me ask a few questions here because again, like you rightly said, he focused a lot of attention on his achievement when it comes to the digitalization thing. I want to know this. I mean, he mentioned what he's done with the birth and deaths. He mentioned what he's done with the passport. He mentioned what he's done with the DVLA, and I can go on and on and on. How effective would you say the making it digital enough has benefited Ghanaians in terms of the passport acquisition, DVLA works, and all that?
Yeah. So when you look at the digitalization agenda, I think that this is quite clear that, and it's actually palpable that it has brought to bear certain fruits. For example, the paperless sport system. The first time they did it, we recorded 51 million cedi more. When you go to ECG, the last time we met Dubik in a meeting, you were part of it. The revenue has gone up, so it's clear that there's been some free. When you go to the passport, though it was a bit checked, but that's wrong. And the fact is that the passport online system was commissioned on the 20th of December 2016. It was a project by NITA and 3 banks and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it is not Bawumia's work. That's the fact. It is not Bawumia's work. It was commissioned by NITA, 3 banks, EcoBank, Zenith Bank, and GCB Bank on the 20th of December 2016. Anybody can Google this. There's a simply verifiable fact. The minister then was Anatete. They started it. The MPP came and made it fully online on the 1st of March 2020. The process had begun before them. But it was at the twilight of Mahama regime, 17 days before they left power. So you can even see that passport acquisition, though even with the recent issues, has been similar a bit. You can talk about the DVLA system. You can talk about how now the police can check insurance and all that. So certainly there's been some bet. As for how these digital innovations have impacted on the state of the economy. That's another discussion that we can have.
Two quick questions for you, because I know you have to, step out briefly. You wanted him to take part of the blame for the mess the economy is in right now. Did you hear anything like that? Were you satisfied with the responses he gave, or you think that he disassociated himself with all the mess?
I think that yesterday when what the vice president was to do was to find a fine balance between he taking glory for certain aspects. And you realize in his speech, the 73 page, that he spent a lot of time talking about digitalization, unlike other aspects. So yesterday, I said it here that he needed to find a fine balance between taking glory and also accepting some of the flaws within the government system. Because if he comes across as trying to totally exclude himself from how the government has fared over the last years, that will be self-destruction. If he also tries to take responsibility, that will be self-destruction. So he finds himself in the word that comes to mind is always a puzzle, a quagmire, where he needed to strategically accept blame and all that. Yesterday, when he started his speech, I like his introduction. So when you read his introduction, let me just read it for you. He said that, just a moment. Yeah, so when I listened to the introduction, it piqued my interest, and I picked my notepad and I was writing. He said, let me read. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 months ago, I was elected as leader and flag bearer of the MPP, blah, blah, blah. The elections have happened. He said that, I believe the time has come now for me to speak to you, the good people of Ghana, about my candidature, what you have experienced as a country, my vision, my priorities, why I believe I'm the best candidate for the presidency of the country in the 2024 presidential elections. I recognize that submitting myself to your service, the electorate, to vote for me as president is no different from interviewing for a job. One needs to tell a prospective employer what he has achieved in his previous job, how he has successfully delivered in the new position he is seeking, which is what I seek to do in this speech. Even though tonight is about sharing my vision and policy priorities with you, I crave your indulgence to broadly set up the context. I will first talk about the record of our government and my contribution as vice president before laying out my vision. I will also proceed to do my analysis based on these 3 anchors: the record of the government, the contribution as vice president, and laying his vision. Now, David, about the record of this government has pretended over, in my view, the worst economic situation we've had in the Fourth Republic dispensation. The data shows there. At a point, our inflation was the worst in 28 years. The Fourth Republic is 32 years. Post the COVID era, things have been tough for this government. We've gone to IMF after they publicly did regional tours and demonized IMF and said that Ghana is a self-respecting country. We will not go to the IMF. We still went to the IMF when the government told us that they were bringing in levy, which was supposed to serve as a cure for us not going to. We ended up going to. So it tells you that the economy is not in a good place. Now, the record of this government is also that they've done well in certain aspects like the digitalization. What is the contribution of the vice president? And David, based on the record of the government, the vice president is saying that he cannot be directly blamed for the flaws of this guy, especially on the economy. But he can be praised solely for his work on the front of digitalization. Now, David, is he right? Constitutionally, he's right. He doesn't take an executive decision. That's why our vice presidents are not on the ballot paper. It's the presidents that are on. They only complement their work. But, David, I find it curious that the president who had confidence in the vice president and said that develop a digital ecosystem that will improve the gains as a developing country, improve efficiency and effectiveness in public delivery service and all that, would take his view on those issues. In fact, yesterday, his spokesperson on PMS confirmed that some initiatives he took, the president even didn't know, and later he supported them. So isn't it curious and strange that a president who will put so much confidence in you on one side, but when it comes to economy, doesn't take your view? Isn't it strange that the man who was the leading voice of the MPP in opposition when they were talking about economy, organizing lectures, they come into power and the president doesn't trust you or advise enough on economic decisions? It's very curious. And David, it made Bawumia come across as, yes, he's saying the truth that he doesn't take final decisions, but that's a weak person. That's how I'm coming. That's how I understood it. Because, listen, You say that the president gave you the digital space, Bank of Ghana monetary, physicals, the finance ministry. So you are basically saying that the blame on the economy should go to the finance minister. But I'm saying that you, not the finance minister, was the face of the MPP campaign, especially on matters of the economy. It's like telling me that when it goes to parliament, David, it's commonsensical that anytime you see somebody leading committees in parliament on a specific issue, when the government is bent, they mostly become finance ministers. That is why there were huge uproar when Ken Ofori-Atta became finance minister, not Akoto Osei, the former late MP for Tafo. So, isn't it strange that the government and cabinet wasn't taking Bawumia side? That's what he's purporting to say. David, I believe that he was just checking the responsibility there. Again, he said that his contribution as vice president, per what Dr. Bawumia said, he's basically saying that as head of the EMT, he offers advice, and he was proud of the advice they've given. He's basically saying that his contribution is digital. He knows nothing about economics. And David, it is a bit of a dent on him as an economist. Why? Dr. Bawumia told us that he's been a deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. He wasn't made digitalization minister. So if a deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, who told us publicly that if the fundamentals are wrong, the economy will expose you, the one who told us that you don't tax yourself out of poverty, you go the path of industrialization, the man who told us, and indeed true, per my energy economic background, that the best indicator of any economy is your pocket, the man who told us that a 13% inflation is incompetence, supervising over a 23% inflation, the man who told us in opposition that the government who had borrowed from Kofo 9 billion to 122 billion is incompetent. Now, if our debt reserve is over 600 billion, so if you come and you tell us that after all these things, you only offered advice and it should end there, that's dishonesty. Oh. Now, lastly, he also said that he will lay out his vision. David, in laying out his vision, which was clear, I think Bawumia, if I'm not mistaken, he has, when he speaks, there's clarity of thought. Give him that. He's intelligent. Let me just put it. He's intelligent. But I see, in adducing or trying to explain his vision, he also painted a picture of a certain disconnect between him, his boss and mentor of 16 years, and the finance ministry. This is why I say so. When Bawumia was applauding people for the economy, he only applauded the Bank of Ghana. In fact, he said that the pressure and the criticisms on the Bank of Ghana is not justified. He didn't mention the finance minister's name. There's nobody, when it comes to the economy, the various sectors, GRA, whatever, who has received more backlash than the finance minister. So for him, there, and this is my inference, to defend the Bank of Ghana, and I was actually surprised that an economist of such reputable standing is saying that the Bank of Ghana is justified to print money to support government economic policy. David, anybody who has a first JSS1 understanding of economics know that that is a very dangerous thing. Now, David, why he eulogized the Bank of Ghana governor ahead of the finance ministry confirms what I talk about, the disconnect. Because, David, listen, when the government went to the IMF, we were told that we are not charging realistic utility tariffs. So there need to be a quarterly review. Every 3 months there will be a review, right? Then the government went back to a 2013, I think, Act 670, that they were going to charge 15%, right? And you know how they did it. The GRA wrote a letter to the IPPs that when you are sending the power, because generation, transmission, distribution, when you are sending the power to GRIDCO and ECG, charge a 15%. What will ECG do? It's common sense. They will pass it to the customers, right? That was one policy. The biggest, and David, in fact, the most topical economic policy in this country is what? Is it not the E-levy? Then they brought in the emission levy. These 3 taxes, David. If the vice president in his vision, seeking to be president, says that he will abolish it, what does he speak of the government he is part of? Coming from the backdrop that finally, that the party he represents, national organizer, have said that the party's position is that they do not support the taxes. One.
So it's going to make their work difficult.
The general secretary of the party, when they were doing the primaries, publicly admonished the president that the party's position is that there should be what? A reshuffle. In outlining his vision again, Dr. Bawumia spoke of 50 ministers, deputy ministers. So Bawumia is agreeing with the many of us that said that the government size or Bolo size doesn't represent the results that they've churned out in the last 8 years. And therefore, you cannot have an Otele size of government and deliver your double size of deliverables. If you have an Otele size of a government, you must deliver an Otele size of government, not your double. Two, he is also telling us that the civil society groups President Akufo-Addo classified as professional Jeremias are right. He's telling President Akufo-Addo that when the chiefs and traditional leaders are calling for reshuffle, they don't hate him. They are saying that your tailor size of government is not delivering any quality leadership and economic metal. So, David, now the question here I want you and Evans to help me answer as I leave is that who then is advising our president? Doesn't it confirm some of the pushing of the president you've seen publicly? Who is advising our president? If the vice president says my advice is not taken, on David, key policies, so look at the length the government went through fee levy. So, who is advising the president? The only clear answer we can glean based on all the happenings of this regime, David, is Kenufuriata. But the question then is, so why did the vice president, who says he is a mate, loaded the car to Accra? On their way to Nkoko, the driver says that, oh, we could travel to Accra, me koya masem, we just passing the sesikanim. Na we made it him. One carry or baya, where you passengers need be crazy, one for musica more than the guests at Nakanim, one carry. While Lodi Kano, Abro so axle weight be beer, one carry. You could do Accra. Not Kaura. Se car no, una na nyejuma papa, or se Kaura and fa car name. That's what Bawumia is saying to us.
5 minutes past 8, and I wanted you to touch on, the endorsement